was in elementary school still at that point, roughly 6 or 7 years old. But I do remember it pretty vividly. We were in the library. Everything that we were doing inside the library stopped, and there were little small TV screens in the corner of the library that started coming on and showing the live footage. It was hard for a young kid to understand what was going on. However, you could see the impact of the adults around us and how severely upset they were. And then we all began to get moved at the same time, understanding that this is a huge, monumental tragedy against our nation. Absolutely. Fast forward to high school football, and I remember on Friday night, I'm from Kentucky originally, and we were playing Allen County. And it was 9/11, and they were playing the national anthem before the game, and just the amount of moved emotions and tears that came to my face, and sense of pride of wanting to also follow in the steps of other soldiers who have made the sacrifice to join the military post 9/11. So yeah, I felt that sense of, I guess, emotional rush all throughout high school and then into college, and I knew I wanted to serve in this profession and continue to fight for the freedoms that we enjoy so much.
11th, I was working at USARC headquarters, and someone mentioned the towers being hit, and so we all went into the public affairs office and were watching it. My heart was breaking at the moment at that time. I remember it clearly. I know it was 23 years ago, but just an overwhelming, I had an overwhelming emotion of patriotism at the time, and was just thinking of our soldiers, the impact of this on our soldiers that we have, but also the community in New York City. So sad moment, but at the same time, I think it kind of brought our country a little bit closer together, and that's what I was doing. Still remember it to this day. I remember exactly where I was, who I was with, and where I was standing.
You know, I think it was a pivotal moment that galvanized the country under really terrible circumstances. But it made us kind of reflect on what's important, which is God, country, and family. So for those that lost their lives, you know, it was a tragedy, and we're all sad for that. But we're also grateful for those soldiers that stepped up in order to fight the war on terrorism, whether they served part-time, full-time, and or lost their lives in that campaign.
I was actually at Enoch. I was actually on Fort Jackson when that happened. It was like a dream. You could not believe it. We saw it over and over and over again, and we had to always walk in a whole bunch. That's what I remember. They just kept us all together at one, just all of us together at one time. And when we kept seeing it on TV, it was like a dream that you just couldn't wake up from, because you kept seeing the towers crushed and falling down, the plane going. It was just unbelievable. But yes, I was at Fort Jackson at Enoch.
Yes.
Where were you on September 11th?
I was in college in Concordia University in Wisconsin, and in my dorm room, woke up, turned on the TV, and saw the first tower fall. I was a sophomore in college. All the subsequent events after 9/11 motivated many in my generation, including myself, to put on the uniform, to serve our nation, and to dedicate ourselves to freedom and protection of this great nation of ours.
I was in Fort Eustis, Virginia at my first duty station. I had just been there for maybe 6 months when that happened, and we all got together and watched the TV around in the CQ area. We didn't know what to think. All I know is that as soon as that happened, they put the base on lockdown, kicked all the civilians off the post, and sent all the soldiers around to start pulling the duties that the civilians had been doing.
I was pretty young. I didn't really know what to think of it. We didn't have access. We didn't watch TV because we were doing the standardized testing. So I didn't get to see all of the news footage. I think I was probably just a little bit too young to really fully grasp what was going on. I just knew that it was not good. I think I always wanted to serve, but I would say yes, definitely, because I did enlist during my senior year, and that was one of the talking points that a lot of my family members were trying to talk me out of joining, was because everything going on. And I said, if it's time to go, we got to go. So that's what I wanted to do.
Mr. Franchek, Deputy S3 for the MRB. Where were you on September 11th?
That's a tough question. I was in Sarasota, Florida. Actually, I was in Tampa, Florida, at MacDill Air Force Base. My parents started calling me. My mother watched one of the towers go down from the Jersey side. And President Bush was in town at Booker Elementary School that day. And I remember the night before, September 10th, was Monday Night Football. And during halftime, I went out to Sarasota Airport to go see Air Force One, because when you get the chance. And I was able to walk underneath Air Force One, touch it the night before. And there was a guy with me, an Amish guy, who looked over at me and said, boy, I'm glad we're not terrorists. Because the Secret Service was sitting in a car, drinking coffee, they waved at us. And that, because it was the night before. And the world changed the next morning. And I drove from Tampa down to Sarasota about 120 miles an hour, because my kids are in Sarasota High School, Sarasota Elementary Schools, and Bush was in Sarasota Elementary School. So I was scared to death that they were going to be involved with it. And I pulled them out of school. And then I went to go donate blood, stood in line for about 4 or 5 hours to donate blood. We didn't know that there were no survivors. It was interesting because in front of me in the line were a bunch of teenagers with tattoos and nose rings and goths. And behind me was a lady who was about 85 years old. And we had absolutely nothing in common except wanting to give blood for the day. And we became good friends.
Thank you for sharing. That's awesome.